Zendikar Rising has arrived, and with it, rotation of the standard format. That means we have got a whole new format to learn, and that is a good thing. Lots of new cards are here to make an impact. Lots of new cards are here to answer those cards that are making an impact. Let's go over your survival guide for week 1 of Zendikar Rising Standard, and the video starts right now. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below. Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. We are going to talk about week 1 of Standard in a brand new unsolved format. But first, if you would, go down there and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you like the video by the end of it. Really helps us out. Let's jump over into these cards. So, the boogeyman in the room, right? Lotus Cobra. Lotus Cobra on the streamer event on Wednesday seemed to just be everywhere. From what I've seen on the ladder Thursday and Friday, even though we had some problems with Arena yesterday, Lotus Cobra is here to stay. Lots of people, of course, are already screaming for it to be banned, which is just ridiculous in my opinion, but you need to know that it is going to be present. There are a lot of decks that want this card, even aggro archetypes. It doesn't have to be control. It doesn't have to be ramp. Lotus Cobra is going to be around and you need to be prepared for it. That's the best thing. We can sit around and complain about bans and cards that are overpowered as much as we want to. However, the best plan, at least in week 1, while the format is still fresh and unsolved and everybody's trying a bunch of stuff, is to come prepared. Know that Lotus Cobra is going to be in decks. Let's look at some answers for Lotus Cobra. I think right off the rip, brand new card, Spikefield Hazard. My favorite card that I've seen to deal with Lotus Cobra so far. At instant speed for 1 red, Spikefield Hazard deals 1 damage to any target. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. That just aces Lotus Cobra right off the bat. Lotus Cobra has a 1 toughness on it. It is very squishy and very easy to kill. So come prepared. I can't reiterate that enough. This card is going to be there in week 1 on the ladder. Be prepared to kill it. The cool thing that I like about Spikefield Hazard is Uro is also going to be there, okay? Everybody's still going to be running Uro. Now, I think a conversation about is Uro going to be banned has a lot more viability than a conversation about is Lotus Cobra going to be banned. But Spikefield Hazard hits Uro and hits Uro hard. Here's the order. They play Uro for 3. They draw a card. They gain 3 life. They can put a land onto their battlefield, and then they have to sack Uro. While Uro's on the battlefield, before they have to sack it, instant speed, Spikefield Hazard deal 1 damage to that Uro, okay? What that's going to do is add that clause, if a permanent dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. You've just aced Uro. Uro's not coming back, okay? This is fantastic. It catches people by surprise, at least in week 1, and you had the added benefit of Spikefield Hazard has a land on the back. And so it's one of these modal DFCs. Jake and I have played a lot with these MDFCs, and they are awesome so far. We still have to figure out the right balance of how many you put in a deck, how often you run them, how they come out of the sideboard, what they do to your actual land count. There's a lot of questions still to be answered. But so far we like the feel of them, and they smooth out a deck. There have been a lot less complaints, a lot fewer complaints about mana screw and not drawing the lands that I need. We're going to see a lot of Omnath, we're going to see a lot of Uro, and we're going to see a lot of Lotus Cobra. Spikefield Hazard deals with 2 of those cards, and we're going to talk about Omnath before this video is over. Now, I've talked about Spikefield Hazard. Let's also talk about Bonecrusher Giant, because I think this is another excellent way to answer Lotus Cobra. It doesn't do the efficient work on Uro that Spikefield does, but it is more versatile overall. The 2 power, 2 damage to any target, and damage can't be prevented is much more versatile than 1 exile the thing that died. We're going to be able to hit more stuff, and we're going to be able to kill the Lotus Cobra. And in addition, you're going to get a 4/3 body on the battlefield after you've cast that thing. I think Bonecrusher Giant is going to prove probably the best way in the long term to deal with Lotus Cobra, and to be just, you know, the best card in your standard deck that can just stay viable and stay strong throughout the entire meta as it evolves over the next few weeks. Now, we said we were going to talk about Omnath, Locus of Creation. This card is a house. This card does so much. I played with it on Wednesday in the early access event. I've seen it on ladder so far. It is so strong and it does so much. There's a deck right now running around that is good, but not great, I would say. I don't think we've seen the final iteration of the Omnath deck that you're going to be complaining about in 2 months. But I do think that people are already complaining about how often it's showing up. And look, it's week 1. That's what we're talking about in this video. This is what you're going to run into on the ladder is Omnath Locus of Creation. I promise you. 50% of your matches are going to be a ramp deck featuring Omnaths, Scoot Mobs, Lotus Cobras, Uros. That's just what you're going to have to slog through for the first week, at the very least. However, I do think that this deck will become good when somebody very, very smart at MTG figures out the actual deck list. They take out some of the higher-end greedy stuff like the Ultimatum, and they start putting in some removal or some counter spells or some control magic stuff so that when they do combo off, the board is cleared, they combo off, they're going to win. So let's talk about Omnath. There's not a lot to say other than how strong it is, but that first ability, that very first landfall is relevant. You gain 4 life off of just 1 landfall with Omnath. What that means for an aggro deck is you can't just push through this thing. You can't just keep attacking, all right? Attacking around or through Omnath is not going to be viable. You've got to answer it. You got to get it off the battlefield. They're going to get a card draw and probably 4 life because they're most likely playing this when they can make another land drop. And you just kind of have to pray that it's not a Fabled Passage or something that can search, or they've got multiple land drops to do on that so that they don't trigger that second ability to get the extra mana. Probably play a Terror Peak Dragon or something like that, and then just start comboing off like crazy. My point is that you can't just attack through this. You have to get it off the battlefield. So of the options that we've got to remove Omnath, I like this the most, especially since, as you can kind of see, I'm already starting to show you a lot of red cards. We're going to get to that more in a second. Thundering Rebuke deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker for 2 mana. Straight up. I talked about this when we were doing the preview season videos. I love that this says or planeswalker on it. I love that they're starting to print cards that say target creature or planeswalker. It doesn't always have to say any target. I understand not wanting Thundering Rebuke to hit any target, even if it's at sorcery speed, because then you can just target their face is the place, and suddenly you're doing way too much damage and the red deck is way too strong. We still want the options to be balanced. Thundering Rebuke for 2 mana, dealing 4 to a creature or planeswalker is a great return. You've got a little versatility into it, so maybe you can main deck it. And look, we're just talking about week 1. Again, just want to reiterate that. We're talking about the first week when we're going to be running into a ton of people that want to try out Lotus Cobra, try out Uro, try out Omnath, and how you might best answer that to climb as far as you can in the first week before the format starts heading towards solved. So Thundering Rebuke, I think, would be a good inclusion, at least in your sideboard, and maybe even a 1 or 2 of in your main deck, just for week 1, because we know we're going to be running into a lot of Omnaths. Now, we've been talking about red cards, so let's talk about another big player in red decks that I've seen a lot, and that's Kargan Intimidator. I've seen Kargan Intimidator in Winota decks. Croaky's runs it. I've seen Kargan Intimidator in mono red decks. Yellow Hat was running it. I know that this is a great card. I've seen it do work. It's that second ability. Pay 1, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Target creature becomes a coward until end of turn. If they've only got 1 or 2 creatures on the battlefield and you've got 1 or 2 Kargans on the battlefield, you're getting through. That's just how it is. I saw one game where they had Kargan Intimidator, 2 of them on their side of the battlefield. They were turning both of the blockers into cowards, and suddenly 6 damage was just pushing through, and the opponent was like, ah. Notice that Kargan Intimidator has 1 toughness. That's kind of a theme. A little thing that I've seen with Zendikar Rising is a lot of these early game plays only have 1 toughness, so that, you know, deal 1 damage thing becomes pretty viable. I'm definitely a fan of Kargan Intimidator, and with most of the good answers in week 1, play a aggro deck. Play a red aggro deck, because there's going to be a lot of really rampy, greedy decks that if they miss a land drop or they lose their tempo at all, you're really going to be able to take advantage of that and just keep swinging through, especially because you hitting your curve is going to be much easier, and just getting damage onto the battlefield, answering those key little pieces, and winning the game. That's what you're going to want to be doing with your red deck in week 1. Now, since we're running red, and we're also talking about maybe red is going to be the other big deck in the space, while everybody's running big greedy ramp, other people are going to be running really go quick Winota or mono red aggro decks. Redcap Melee is pretty huge right now. Redcap Melee is going to answer all of the red threats. It's going to hit Terror of the Peaks, which only has 4 toughness. It's going to hit Omnath, who has red in the casting cost and is a 4/4, Redcap Melee is going to be doing work. And this is a card that may be a sideboard card, definite 2-3 of sideboard card moving forward, just period. But especially in week 1, this card is going to do a lot of things. It's going to hit all of the aggro decks that are going to be punching through. It kills Winota. It's going to be hitting your Omnaths in the big greedy ramp deck, Terror of the Peaks. It's going to hit both of those really hard for 1 mana at instant speed. Definitely put some Redcap Melees in your sideboards, especially for week 1. And we'll monitor it and see if this should just remain a sideboard card going forward. And my guess is that it will. I also really love Blood Chief's Thirst, and I think that this is just going to be a staple. I think we're all going to be getting Blood Chief's Thirsted until this card rotates. This is a fantastic card. 1 mana to destroy a creature or planeswalker CMC 2 or less. 4 mana to just straight up destroy a creature or planeswalker. This is a nutty card. Most notably, it kills the Cobra. That is what you want it to do right now. It also slows down the aggro deck. And so it's one of these 1 mana removal spells that are pulling double duty. Slowing down the aggro deck, and it's going to defend against the Lotus Cobra. And if you get to a point where you're like, gotta answer an Omnath or gotta answer a Terror of the Peaks, pay 4 and kill either one of them. And both those cards, like I said, those are cards you gotta get off the battlefield as soon as possible. Leaving a Terror of the Peaks unchecked is just going to wipe your entire board and then start going to your face. And leaving Omnath on the board, they're going to gain mana. I mean, 8 mana, 8 life gained after 2 land drops. You got to answer it. That's all I'm saying. You can't just ignore it and say, all right, we'll go around you. So those are 8 cards that I think that are going to be very impactful in the first week or 2 of the new standard format. Build on one of those sides, go the ramp, try that ramp deck out. Go the aggro deck so you can go under the ramp decks, and then use those removals specifically to fight those 2 strategies. I want to talk about one more card, and that is Elidar Retreat. This is kind of on my watch list. I was expecting this card to be huge right out of the gate. I just think this is so good, and a card that must be answered once it's played. But I haven't really seen a lot of decks run this yet. I've seen some people tinkering with it, but I haven't seen anybody that's really figured it out. Most everybody's really entranced by Omnath and Lotus Cobra, and that makes sense. Those cards are awesome and splashy and super cool. Or they're on the other side of the fence where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take advantage of everybody that's being super greedy and playing these ramp decks and try and go under them as quickly as possible and take advantage of any turn where they might miss a land drop or just run out of gas and not have any big payoffs for all their ramp, stuff like that. Elidar Retreat hasn't really broken out yet, but I do think that this card is going to get there. I think that this is going to be a tier 2 deck at the least and possibly a tier 1. We'll see. It's a 4-cost enchantment. That is pretty slow in 2020 Magic, to be honest. But I do think that hopefully the overall power level besides Uro has been reduced enough that a card like this could be viable. So I would say this is on the watch list. Start tinkering with this if you want to play a deck that's not the ramp deck or the aggro deck. Elidar Retreat would be a nice way to go. See if you can get there, or keep your eyes out. Keep your ear to the ground. I'm assuming some of the MPL accounts are going to start tweeting about how they've taken Elidar Retreat to the next level, and suddenly it's going to be a very good deck. That's what I've seen so far for Standard in Week 1. Let's close the book. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you've noticed about Standard in Week 1. And let me know if you want me to make this an ongoing series. I've just been watching a lot of different streamers with the new set, and I've started to notice a few trends, and I wanted to talk to y'all about those. But if this is something that you want me to kind of keep track of week over week, I'd love to do that. I'm not a professional by any means. We definitely represent the classy casual side of MTG, but I do notice a lot from all the streaming that I watch while I will go throughout my workday. So I'm happy to communicate what I'm seeing to y'all if y'all are interested in seeing it. If you want to support us further, we have a Patreon. The link is down in the description below. Check that out and see if you're a good fit. We got Discord access, monthly giveaways, behind the scenes videos, lots of cool stuff. Go check it out and see what you think. Other than that, I'm tapped out. We'll see you in Week 2 maybe.